Scout Commander Vrextal had been doing this job for 37 years. In that time, he had discovered 42 new civilizations. Some were primitive, still using stone tools. Others were advanced, already reaching for their moons. Each discovery followed the same pattern. His ship would arrive, scan the planet, catalog the dominant species, and move on to the next phase of first contact protocols. This was supposed to be survey number 43. Nothing special. Just another routine mission to Sector 7719. Vrextal's 4 eyes scanned the data screens as his ship approached the third planet from a yellow star. The automated probes had flagged this world months ago. Radio signals, satellite technology, nuclear capability, all signs of a civilization ready for contact. "Beginning full planetary scan," announced Kira, his second officer. Her antennae twitched as she worked the controls. Like Vrextal, she was from Zelthor, a world where his insect-like people had evolved into the dominant species millions of years ago. The scan began. Within seconds, every alarm on the bridge started screaming at once. "What in the void?" Vrextal leaped from his seat. In 37 years, he had never seen every system trigger simultaneously. "Commander, I think there's an error in the scanner," Kira said, her voice uncertain. "The readings don't make sense." "Show me." The main screen filled with data. Vrextal stared at it for a long moment, his mind refusing to accept what he was seeing. The planet held 8.7 million different species. 8.7 million. The biodiversity index was 847 times higher than any known world in the entire galactic collective. "That's impossible," Vrextal whispered. "Run it again. Check for system malfunction." Kira ran the scan 3 more times. The results stayed the same. "Commander, there's more," she said quietly. "The dominant species, they call themselves humans. They're not alone on their planet." "Of course they're not alone. No species is completely alone. No, sir, I mean they're sharing their world with everything. Predators, prey, competitors, species that serve no purpose to them at all." Vrextal moved closer to the screen. The data showed massive areas of the planet set aside, untouched by human development. Forests, oceans, grasslands, all protected. "These are nature reserves," Kira explained, translating human data they had intercepted. Humans created them to protect other species. They have laws against hunting certain animals. They have programs to save species from extinction, species that don't benefit them in any way. "That makes no sense," Vrextal said. "When my people became dominant on Zelthor, we eliminated our competitors. That's how evolution works. That's how every species in the collective reached the top of their food chain." "I know, sir. But look at this." Kira pulled up more data. "Humans spend billions of their currency units protecting apex predators, animals that could kill them. They create sanctuaries for them. They even help injured ones." Vrextal felt his mind struggling to understand. In all his years, in all 42 civilizations he had discovered, he had never seen anything like this. Dominant species conquered. They expanded. They used their planet's resources. They didn't protect their competitors. "Show me their cities," he ordered. The screen changed to show aerial views of human settlements. Vrextal expected to see the usual signs of a dominant species. Cities covering every available space. Other species pushed to the margins or eliminated entirely. Instead, he saw something that made his breath catch. Human cities had parks, green spaces, trees growing in the middle of their buildings. They had created homes for birds and small animals within their own living spaces. They fed creatures that lived alongside them, asking nothing in return. "They have animals living in their homes," Kira said, her voice full of wonder. "By choice. They call them pets. They form emotional bonds with them. They grieve when these animals die." "But why?" Vrextal asked. "What evolutionary advantage does that give them?" I don't know, sir. Nothing in the database explains this. Vrextal sat back down slowly. His hands were shaking. In 847,000 years, the Galactic Collective had encountered millions of species across multiple galaxies. They had seen every type of civilization imaginable. Peaceful ones, warlike ones, logical ones, emotional ones. But never this. Never a species that protected beings that could not reciprocate. Never a species that cared for creatures that provided no survival advantage. "There's something else, Commander," Kira said. "The humans have been to war with each other many times, but even in war they created rules. They call them war crimes. They punish their own people for being too cruel to their enemies. They feel guilt for winning? It appears so, sir. They have something they call empathy. It's stronger than anything we've seen before. They can feel emotional pain for beings completely unlike themselves." Vrextal stood up and walked to the viewing port. Below, the blue and green planet turned slowly. Earth, the humans called it. A beautiful world, teeming with life that its dominant species chose to protect rather than destroy. "Send a priority transmission to the Galactic Council," he ordered. "Tell them we've found something that contradicts everything we know about evolutionary development. Tell them we need immediate guidance." "What classification should I give this discovery, sir?" Vrextal thought for a moment. In his career, he had classified civilizations as primitive, developing, advanced, or post-scarcity. He had classifications for aggressive species, peaceful species, and everything in between. He had no classification for this. "Mark it as unprecedented," he finally said. "And Kira, initiate a communication blackout. No one contacts this planet until the Council decides how to proceed. We need to understand what we're seeing before humanity discovers they're being watched." As Kira sent the transmission, Vrextal kept staring at Earth. Somewhere down there, billions of humans were living their lives. They were caring for their pets, protecting endangered species, creating art that celebrated the beauty of beings unlike themselves. They were doing things that should have made them weak, that should have led to their extinction. Yet they had become the dominant species anyway. "How is this possible?" he whispered to himself. The question would echo through the entire Galactic Collective in the hours to come, and nobody would have an answer. The Council Chamber on Nexus Prime had stood for 4,000 years. Its walls were made of crystal that sang with the voices of 10,000 species. Today, those walls were silent. Every representative sat in stunned quiet, staring at the data from Earth. This emergency session was only the third in the entire history of the Galactic Collective. The last one had been called when two member species nearly destroyed each other in a war. Before that, when the Collective had discovered a dying star threatening 5 populated worlds. This meeting was about something else entirely, something nobody understood. High Counselor Velshanis called the session to order. His species had been part of the Collective longer than most others had existed. He had seen everything the galaxy had to offer, or so he thought. "We have reviewed Scout Commander Vrextal's report," Velshanis began, "and we have verified his findings. The planet Earth presents us with a phenomenon we have never encountered. I open the floor for discussion." Dr. Kaleness stood first. His people were known for pure logic, for seeing patterns others missed. His species had evolved past emotions millions of years ago, finding them inefficient. "The data is clear but inexplicable," Kaleness said. "In every known civilization, the sapient species dominates its ecosystem completely. This is universal law. The strongest survive. The weakest are eliminated. But humans are different. They share their world. They protect the weak. This should not be possible." General Throck rose next. His species had conquered their world through superior warfare. They had evolved from apex predators, and it showed in every aspect of their society. I have studied human military history, Throck said, his voice rumbling through the chamber. They developed atomic weapons, devices that could destroy their entire civilization. And then they stopped using them in warfare. Voluntarily, they created treaties. They agreed to limit their own power. He paused as if the words hurt to say. No warrior species would do this. No conqueror would choose weakness. Elder Mirazolan spoke from her floating platform. Her species was among the oldest in the collective, having achieved space travel before most others had even evolved eyes. I have examined their art, she said softly. They create beauty depicting other species, not as food, not as threats. They paint them, sculpt them, write poetry about them. They see other creatures as having inherent value. This reverence for life beyond their own is unique in our entire database. More representatives stood, each sharing their analysis of Earth. The pattern was the same from every angle. Humans were impossible. They had created laws protecting animals that could kill them. They spent vast resources bringing species back from the edge of extinction. They wept over the loss of creatures they had never met. They risked their lives to save beings that could never thank them or understand what had been done. Ambassador Tolvin, representing one of the more aggressive species, stood with visible frustration. Perhaps they are simply naive. Young civilizations often have idealistic phases before reality teaches them harshness. They are not naive, Dr. Kaleness responded. They have endured ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plagues that killed millions. They know harshness, yet their response to suffering was not to become cruel. It was to become more compassionate. A murmur ran through the chamber. This made no sense to anyone present. Finally, a human stood up. Not a real human, but the collective's leading xenopsychologist who had taken on a human name after studying Earth's broadcasts. Dr. Min Seo had been studying humanity longer than anyone else in the chamber. I have a theory, Min Seo said, but it challenges everything we believe about evolution. Speak, Velshanis ordered. Every species in this chamber evolved through competition. The strong dominated, the weak perished. Cooperation came later, after you achieved space travel, after you met other species and learned that working together had advantages. Compassion was taught. It was learned. It was a choice. Min Seo activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. But humans are different. Look at their brain structure. They have neural pathways dedicated to empathy, not just for their own kind, for anything that shows signs of suffering. A human can feel emotional pain watching a complete stranger cry. They can feel distress when they see an injured animal. They can even feel sadness for creatures that exist only in stories. That should have killed them, General Throck said. Empathy for enemies, compassion for predators. These are weaknesses. Are they? Min Seo asked. Humans became the dominant species on their planet not despite these traits, but because of them. Their empathy allowed them to form larger social groups. Their compassion meant they took care of injured members instead of abandoning them. Their ability to bond across species lines meant they domesticated animals to help them survive. Dr. Kaleness leaned forward. You're suggesting that empathy was their evolutionary advantage? I'm suggesting that Earth is unlike any world we've encountered. It's brutal. Climate swings from ice ages to warming periods. Tectonic activity. Volcanic winters. Any species surviving there needed more than strength. They needed cooperation on a level we've never seen. The humans who helped strangers, who formed bonds across tribal lines, who could work with other species, they were the ones who survived. Cruelty was extinction. Compassion was survival. The chamber fell silent as the collective absorbed this idea. It contradicted everything they knew, yet the evidence was undeniable. There is more, Min Seo continued. Humans are not the only intelligent species that evolved on Earth. There were others: Neanderthals, Denisovans, several more. When humans met them, they did not eliminate them as competitors. They interbred with them. They joined with them. Every human alive today carries genetic material from other human species. They didn't just spare their competitors. They became one with them. This revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. Every species present had eliminated their evolutionary competitors. It was the foundation of dominance. Yet humans had chosen a different path. Velshanis stood slowly. If humans can form bonds with their own competitors, if they can feel empathy for beings completely unlike themselves, what happens when they meet us? When they meet 10,000 different species? The question hung in the air. Nobody had an answer, but everyone understood the implications. I propose we continue observation, Velshanis said. We need to understand them better before we make contact. This is not a routine first contact scenario. Humanity represents something we have never seen. We must proceed with wisdom. The vote was unanimous. Observation would continue. Contact would wait. As the council members filed out, Minseo stood alone in the chamber, looking at images of Earth on the display. Somewhere on that blue planet, humans were living their impossible lives, caring for beings that could not thank them, protecting species that could not understand, being kind because it was simply who they were. For the first time in 847,000 years, the Galactic Collective had found something completely new, and they had no idea what to do about it. 47 research teams descended on Earth's orbital space. Their ships remained cloaked, invisible to human technology. Each team had a mission. Each team had questions that needed answers. How had humanity become what they were? What made them so different from every other species in the known universe? Dr. Zinthara led the psychology team. Her species had evolved from solitary hunters who only gathered to mate. The concept of family beyond reproduction was foreign to her people. Yet here she was, watching a human family through their observation screens. The family had 3 members, 2 adults and 1 juvenile. Standard family structure, nothing unusual. But they also had a 4th member, a creature they called a dog. It was not human. It shared no genetic relationship with them. Yet they treated it like family. Zinthara watched as the adult female human spent an entire afternoon at a veterinary clinic. The dog was old and sick. The human spent 1,200 of their currency units for treatment, money that could have been used for food, shelter, or offspring care. Instead, it went to prolonging the life of a creature that could not even understand what was being done for it. "Why?" Zinthara whispered to her assistant. "What benefit does she gain?" Her assistant had been studying human psychology for weeks. "She loves it," he replied simply. "Humans form emotional bonds with other species. They call them pets, but they treat them as family members. When these animals die, humans grieve, real grief, the same grief they would feel for their own children." Zinthara watched the human woman crying in the clinic, holding her dog while it received treatment. The emotion was real. The pain was genuine. This was not performance. This was not calculation. This was pure empathy for a being completely unlike herself. "Send this to the main database," Zinthara said quietly. "Category: unexplained compassion. Subtype: cross-species emotional bonding." Across the planet, historian Jiwoo studied human conflict. His species had evolved through constant warfare. War was natural. War was necessary. War was how his people had become strong. They had no concept of mercy for enemies. Jiwoo accessed human historical records, focusing on their wars. Humans had fought countless wars, some for resources, some for territory, some for ideas. They were not a peaceful species. They understood violence, but they had also created something his people never had: rules for warfare. Jiwoo read document after document. The Geneva Conventions, rules about prisoners of war, laws protecting civilians, prohibitions against certain weapons, concepts like war crimes and crimes against humanity. They punish their own soldiers for being too cruel, Jiwoo reported to his team. Even in victory, they feel guilt. Even to enemies, they extend dignity. They have warriors who refuse to follow orders they consider immoral, even when facing punishment for disobedience. His assistant looked confused. But if they extend mercy to enemies, how do they ever win wars? That's what's fascinating, Jiwoo replied. They do win, often, but they win and then help their enemies rebuild. They defeated nations and then spent resources reconstructing them. They made enemies into allies through compassion rather than domination. Jiwoo highlighted a particular example. After their Second World War, they could have crushed their defeated enemies. Instead, they helped them, gave them food, helped rebuild their cities. Some of their strongest allies today are nations they were at war with 70 years ago. The historical team sat in silence, absorbing this data. It contradicted everything they knew about conflict resolution. Yet it had worked for humans. Their compassion had not made them weak. It had made them strong in ways no other species had achieved. In the oceans, biologist Quarthos studied human conservation efforts. His species had strip-mined their homeworld before achieving space travel. It was natural. Resources existed to be used. Only after leaving their planet had his people learned the value of preservation. But humans were different. They were still on their home world, and they were already trying to save it. Quarthos watched as human scientists worked to protect coral reefs, tiny organisms that most humans would never even see. Yet they spent millions studying them, protecting them, trying to restore damaged reefs. They did this knowing that coral reefs supported ocean ecosystems that humans ultimately depended on. But that was not all. Humans also protected species that had no value to them at all. Deep ocean creatures living in trenches humans could barely explore. Arctic animals in regions humans did not inhabit. Microorganisms that humans could not see without technology. They protected all of it. They call it biodiversity, Quarthos reported. They believe every species has inherent value, not because of what it provides to them, but because it exists. They have a concept called extinction guilt. They feel responsible for species that went extinct even before humans evolved. They grieve for animals that died millions of years ago. His team member, a practical-minded biologist, asked the obvious question. How does that help them survive? It doesn't, Quarthos admitted. Not directly, but it reveals something about how they think. They see themselves as part of their ecosystem, not above it. They understand that everything is connected. They call it the web of life. They know that damaging one part damages the whole. What amazed Quarthos most was the scale of human dedication. They had created protected areas covering millions of square kilometers, marine reserves where fishing was forbidden, forest preserves where logging was banned. They had even reintroduced predator species to regions where humans lived, despite the danger. They brought wolves back to Yellowstone, Quarthos told his team, his voice full of wonder. Large predators, dangerous to humans and their livestock. They did it because they understood the ecosystem needed predators. They valued ecological balance over their own convenience. All across Earth's orbit, 47 teams gathered similar data. Each piece added to the puzzle. Each observation deepened the mystery. Dr. Min Seo coordinated all the research, compiling reports from every team. The picture that emerged was consistent. Humans possessed empathy at a level no other species had achieved. It was not learned. It was not taught. It was built into their very biology. But Min Seo found something else in the data, something that might explain everything. Humans were not the only intelligent species that had evolved on Earth. The genetic record showed at least 6 other human species had existed: Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, Denisovans. Others whose names were still being discovered. When anatomically modern humans met these other species, they did not fight them to extinction. They did not eliminate competition for resources. Instead, they joined with them. They interbred. They merged. Every human alive carried genetic fragments from these other species: Neanderthal genes that helped them survive cold climates, Denisovan genes that helped them at high altitudes. They had not conquered their competitors. They had become one with them. "This is the key," Minseo said to the Research Council. "Humans did not evolve to dominate through elimination. They evolved to survive through integration. They made friends where others would have made enemies. They found family where others saw competitors." The research continued for 3 months. Every day brought new observations. Every observation confirmed the same impossible truth. Humanity was unique, not because they were smarter or stronger, but because they cared. They cared about beings unlike themselves. They cared about creatures that could never reciprocate. They cared about the future of species they would never meet. This should have made them weak. By every known law of evolution, this should have led to their extinction. Instead, it had made them thrive. Captain Park Hyun-woo had dreamed of going to space since he was 6 years old. Now, at 42, he commanded the Ares 7 mission to Mars. 3 crew members, 6 months of supplies, a mission to establish humanity's first permanent research station on another planet. It was the 14th day of their journey when the sensors detected something impossible. "Captain, we have an anomaly," said Navigator Chen. "Approximately 4,000 kilometers off our port side. It's not showing up on any of our catalogs." Hyun-woo checked his screens. There was definitely something there. Something large. But it was not supposed to exist. "Could it be debris?" asked Dr. Kim Min-ji, their science officer. "Debris doesn't maintain a stable orbit," Chen replied. "Whatever it is, it's under power, and it's trying very hard not to be seen." Hyun-woo felt his heart rate increase. They all knew what this might mean. They had all wondered if humanity was alone. Now they might have an answer. "Regulations say we should report this and continue to Mars," Hyun-woo said slowly. "Mission Command would want us to avoid any potential first contact scenario. Regulations also say we should investigate any potential hazard to navigation," Chen pointed out. They looked at each other. History hung in the balance. The safe choice was to report and move on. The bold choice was to investigate. "We're already making history by going to Mars," Dr. Kim said quietly. "But this could change everything." Hyun-woo made his decision. "Change course. Approach slowly. Keep all communication channels open. If they wanted to hide from us, they're doing a poor job of it." They did not know that Vrextal's observation ship had suffered a malfunction. A critical cloaking system had failed, making them partially visible to human sensors. The repair would take hours during which they were vulnerable to discovery. Vrextal watched the human ship change course toward them. Every protocol said he should move away, maintain distance, prevent contact until the council authorized it. But moving would reveal that they were definitely not debris. It would confirm that something intelligent was here. And if the humans reported it to their world, the secret would be out anyway. "Hold position," Vrextal ordered. "If they get close, decloak completely. Better they see us clearly than think we're trying to hide." As the human ship approached, both sides held their breath. Decades of planning. Months of observation, all about to change because of one system failure. When the human ship came within visual range, Vrextal gave the order. His ship decloaked completely. Captain Yun-woo stared at the alien vessel through their viewport. It was enormous. Beautiful, clearly far more advanced than anything humanity had built. They had wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew. "Captain, what do we do?" Chen whispered. Hyun-woo looked at his crew. Dr. Kim was crying. Chen looked terrified. They were 3 humans in a tiny ship, facing a civilization that could probably destroy them without effort. Hyun-woo opened a communication channel. His hand was shaking, but his voice was steady. "Hello? This is Captain Park Hyun-woo of Earth. We've wondered if you were out there." He paused, then added, "Are you okay? Your ship looks like it might be damaged." On the alien vessel, Vrextal stared at his communication screen. In 37 years of first contact situations, no species had ever asked if his ship was okay. They had demanded identification. They had fled in fear. They had threatened violence. They had attempted communication or trade, but none had ever asked if he needed help. "Commander, how do we respond?" Kira asked. Vrextal looked at the data on the human ship. 3 individuals, fragile vessel, no weapons that could harm his ship. They were alone in deep space, facing vastly superior technology. They should be terrified, yet their first question was whether he needed assistance. Vrextal made a decision that violated every protocol. "Open a channel." The face that appeared on his screen was distinctly alien, yet somehow familiar. 2 eyes like his species had 4. Bilateral symmetry. A face capable of expression. The human was clearly nervous, but also curious. "We are functional," Vrextal said carefully in the human language his ship had learned from Earth's broadcasts. "You are not frightened?" Captain Hyun-woo smiled nervously. "Frightened? We're terrified, but you're clearly more advanced than us. If you wanted to hurt us, we couldn't stop you anyway. So, would you like help with repairs?" This was unprecedented. Vrextal looked at Kira. She looked back, equally shocked. "You would help us?" Vrextal asked. "Why?" "Because you seem to need help," Hyun-woo replied, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. "And because if our positions were reversed, we'd hope you'd help us." Vrextal knew that every member of the Galactic Council was watching this feed in real time. He knew he was breaking every rule. He knew this moment would be studied for centuries. He accepted. 2 hours later, human engineers worked alongside Vrextal's crew. Dr. Sei, Kim Min-ji, had proven surprisingly capable at understanding alien technology. She could not read their language, but she understood engineering principles. She asked questions. She offered suggestions. She worked carefully and respectfully. During a break in the repairs, Dr. Kim pulled out a tablet and showed the alien crew members pictures. Her family back on Earth, her children, her elderly parents, her rescue dog that she had adopted from a shelter. "This is my family," she explained. "I miss them. Do you have anyone you miss?" The question surprised Vrextal's crew. They had families. They had people they cared about. But no human had ever asked them that before. No first contact protocol included such personal questions. "I have 3 offspring," Kira replied slowly, "and a bonded partner. I have not seen them in 2 years. That must be so hard," Dr. Kim said with genuine sympathy. "Being away from the people you love for so long. I hope you get to see them soon." Kira felt something strange. The human's empathy was real. She was not trying to gather intelligence. She was not attempting manipulation. She simply cared that Kira missed her family. "Do you think your family would like to meet us?" Dr. Kim asked. "When we officially make contact, I mean. I'd love to meet them. I bet my kids would be fascinated." The repairs took 4 hours. During that time, the human crew never stopped asking questions. Not about technology or military capability. They asked about cultures, about families, about what their worlds were like. They shared food from their ship. They laughed at shared jokes. even when translation was imperfect. When the repairs were complete, Captain Hyun-woo offered his contact information. "In case you need anything else, and if you want to visit Earth, you're welcome. I know our planet isn't much compared to what you probably have, but we'd be honored to show you around." Vrextal took the information. "Captain Hyun-woo, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "You encountered a vastly superior civilization in deep space. You were alone. You were vulnerable. Yet you offered help. Why did you not defend yourself or flee?" Hyun-woo considered the question. "Because fear makes us do terrible things. Because meeting someone new should be a moment of joy, not violence. Because we've always hoped that if there are others out there, they'd be friends, not enemies. We chose to see you as potential friends first." After the human ship departed toward Mars, Vrextal sent his report to the Galactic Council. His message was simple. "First contact protocols are insufficient. Humans do not respond to us as threats or opportunities. They respond to us as people, as potential friends, as beings worthy of empathy and care. They offered help when they could have fled. They asked about our families when they could have demanded information. They saw us not as aliens, but as people who might be lonely, far from home." The Galactic Council faced a new question. Not whether to contact humanity, but whether they were ready for what humanity represented. 3 months after the Mars incident, Ambassador Lee Soo-jin stood in the boarding area of Seoul Spaceport. Around her, 5 other representatives from Earth's United Nations waited nervously. They wore their finest formal attire. They carried gifts from their respective cultures. They were about to meet the Galactic Collective. The alien ship that descended from the sky was unlike anything humans had built. It was beautiful, elegant, and enormous. When the boarding ramp extended, Ambassador Lee took a deep breath and led her delegation forward. The journey to Nexus Prime took 3 days. During that time, the human delegates asked countless questions. They wanted to know about the species they would meet, about their cultures, about their families. The alien crew found themselves sharing personal stories they had never told another species before. When the ship emerged from faster-than-light travel, the human delegates rushed to the viewports. Before them hung Nexus Prime, a station the size of a small moon, home to representatives from 10,000 species across multiple galaxies. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," Ambassador Lee whispered. The council chamber was even more impressive. As the human delegates entered, they saw thousands of beings from thousands of worlds, every shape imaginable. Some walked, some flew, some existed in liquid-filled containers. Some were made of energy more than matter. Ambassador Lee felt tears streaming down her face. They had spent so long wondering if they were alone. They had dreamed of finding others, and here, in this chamber, were more than they had ever imagined possible. "Welcome, representatives of Earth," High Counselor Velshanis spoke, his words translated into perfect English. "Thank you for accepting our invitation." Ambassador Lee stepped forward, her voice shaking with emotion. "Thank you for inviting us. This is beyond our wildest dreams, to know that we're not alone, that there are so many of you. It's overwhelming. Please, sit with us," Velshanis said. "We have much to discuss." When the human delegates were seated, Velshanis began. "We must be honest with you. We have been watching your world for longer than you know. 3 months before Captain Park met Scout Commander Vrextal, we discovered Earth. We have observed you, studied you, tried to understand you." Ambassador Lee felt a moment of concern, but Velshanis continued. "We have been a galactic civilization for 847,000 years. In that time, we have encountered millions of species. We have seen every type of intelligence, every form of society, every path to dominance." He paused, his ancient eyes focusing on the humans. "Until we found you." Dr. Minseo stepped forward from the council ranks. Humanity is unique in the entire known universe. You possess something we thought impossible. Universal compassion. The human delegates looked at each other, confused. Compassion was normal to them, natural. "Let me explain," Velshanis said. "Every species in this chamber achieved dominance on their world through the elimination of competitors. We conquered our ecosystems. We dominated through strength, intelligence, or adaptation. We survived because we were the fittest." He gestured to the assembled representatives. "Cooperation came later, after we achieved space travel, after we met other species. We learned that working together was beneficial, but compassion, true empathy for beings unlike ourselves, that was taught. It was a choice we made after achieving intelligence." "But you're different," Dr. Minseo said. "You evolved compassion. It's built into your biology. You can feel empathy for beings completely unlike yourselves. You protect species that cannot thank you. You grieve for extinctions you did not cause. You risk your lives to save beings that will never know what you did for them." Ambassador Lee tried to process this. "But doesn't everyone feel that way? Don't you care about other species?" "We learned to care," Velshanis said gently. "After millennia of cooperation, after seeing the benefits of working together, but we don't feel it the way you do. When we see suffering, we understand intellectually that we should help. When you see suffering, you feel compelled to help. It causes you actual pain to watch others hurt." General Throck stood. "My species are warriors. We evolved from apex predators. For millions of years, we conquered through strength. We dominated through power. Even now, after 10,000 years in the collective, I can watch suffering without emotional distress. I help because it is logical, beneficial, and right. But I don't feel what you feel." "We have a problem," Velshanis continued. "The Galactic Collective spans multiple galaxies. We have achieved wonders, but we are not whole. We have thousands of species recovering from near extinction, ecosystems collapsing on mining worlds. Member species who still cannot truly understand each other emotionally despite millennia of cooperation. We built our civilization on logic and necessity. We learned to work together because we had to." He looked directly at Ambassador Lee. "You built your civilization on something else. On compassion. On the instinct to care for beings unlike yourselves. On the desire to protect the vulnerable. This is your nature. This is what you do without thinking." Dr. Minseo approached the human delegates. "We need your help. We need you to teach us what comes naturally to you. How to see beings unlike ourselves as worthy of care. How to feel genuine compassion across species barriers. How to build a civilization based not just on cooperation, but on genuine caring." Ambassador Lee felt overwhelmed. "You're asking us to teach the entire galaxy how to care?" "We're asking you to share what you already know," Velshanis said. "You're not perfect. We know you still have conflicts on your world. But you have something no other species has developed. The instinct to protect, the desire to help, the ability to love beings completely different from yourselves." Another delegate, Ambassador Chen, spoke up. "But we thought we'd be the students. We thought you'd be so far beyond us in every way." "You are beyond us," Elder Mirazolan said softly. "In the one way that matters most. We can build faster ships. We can calculate complex mathematics. We can manipulate energy and matter in ways you're only beginning to understand. But we cannot feel what you feel. We cannot care the way you care." Dr. Minseo pulled up a display. "We've studied your evolutionary history. Your planet is uniquely harsh. Ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts. Your species faced extinction dozens of times. You survived because small tribes took in strangers. Because you could bond with other species for mutual survival. Because the ones who helped each other outlived the ones who didn't. Evolution made you kind," Dr. Minseo continued. "Because on Earth, cruelty led to extinction. Your compassion is not weakness. It's the trait that allowed you to survive when stronger, faster, more aggressive species died out. Ambassador Lee looked at her fellow delegates. They were all crying now. They had come here expecting to be the primitive ones, the ones who had to learn from advanced civilizations. Instead, they were being asked to teach. "Yes," Ambassador Lee finally said. "Of course we'll help. We'd be honored." The council chamber erupted in sounds of approval from 10,000 species. Each made their own noise, but the meaning was universal. Over the following months, humans began their new role in the Galactic Collective. They were not given junior positions. They were given something more important. They became teachers, bridge builders, counselors. Young Dr. Kim Ji-woo, who had been part of the Mars mission, now taught alien children how to care for small creatures. She showed them the joy of watching something grow, the satisfaction of helping something helpless, the deep connection that could form across species lines. In conservation projects across the galaxy, humans helped other species learn to preserve rather than just use. They taught the value of biodiversity. They shared techniques for ecosystem restoration. They spread the idea that every species had inherent worth. In diplomatic sessions, humans helped bridge gaps between species that had never truly understood each other. They taught empathy techniques. They shared stories. They helped logical species understand emotional ones, and emotional species appreciate logical ones. Captain Park Hyun-woo became an ambassador himself, traveling to member worlds and sharing Earth's story. How a harsh planet had created a compassionate species. How protecting the weak had made them strong. How caring for others had allowed them to thrive. One evening, Ambassador Lee stood in an observation deck on Nexus Prime. Dr. Min-seo joined her, looking out at the stars. "I've studied your species for years," Min-seo said, "and I still don't fully understand how you do what you do, how you can care so deeply for beings so unlike yourselves." Lee smiled. "Maybe that's the point. Maybe you're not supposed to understand it intellectually. Maybe you're just supposed to feel it." "Can we learn that?" "I think so. It might take time. But I've seen aliens on Earth play with rescue animals and cry when they have to leave. I've seen logical species cry at human poetry. I've seen warrior species gentle with children. The capacity is there. You just need permission to access it." Permission? Permission to be vulnerable. Permission to care even when it's not logical. Permission to feel pain for others and know that it makes you stronger, not weaker. Min-seo was quiet for a moment. Humanity spent millennia wondering if they were alone in the universe. "We did," Lee agreed. "You never imagined that when you finally reached the stars, we would be the ones who had been lonely." Lee looked at the billions of lights representing the Galactic Collective. 10,000 species, trillions of individuals, all learning something that humans had taken for granted. "We're all learning together now," Lee said softly. "That's what family does." And across the galaxy, humans continued their work, teaching compassion, sharing empathy, building bridges, being exactly what the universe had needed all along but never known it was missing. Not conquerors, not warriors, not even explorers, friends.